One, go. Welcome one, welcome all. Welcome to the shit show. This is your host, Thunder Drummer, doing a redo video on the Nameless Soul. He was one of the short um stories that I made over on TikTok. Um, so I decided to redo them for over here on YouTube land. The story is gonna be a lot different in some aspects, um, but in some not so much. So let's go. All right, the beginning of our tale is our protagonist Soul is about 5 years old at this point. Um, he was just abandoned from his mother. His mother just took off one day and never came back. He don't know if she died. She don't know if he just ran away. He didn't know anything. One thing that you need to know about Soul is he is an extremely intelligent boy. Like, even before learning how to talk, learning how to do a lot of that, and he acts more like a grown up than his own mother. But keep in mind, he's still a kid. Um, so one day the cops and the social services lady came in, was coming to take him away. But when they got there, nobody was there. Not a single soul was in the house. There was no food that wasn't, all the food in the fridge that could be taken with somebody was, meaning like non-perishables and stuff like that, like beef jerky and canned foods and stuff like that. Um, and some of the tools and stuff out of the tool shed was disappeared and whatnot. His mom did buy him a phone for his birthday that year, and shortly after his birthday is when she took off, never to be found again. But still don't know exactly what happened to her. Well, of course, it has no signal on it, and he took out the anything that could track him on the phone using YouTube and whatnot, because he never wants to be tracked. And it was just a burner phone, so it wasn't like magnificence beyond fury. But anyway, so he threw the phone in his pocket and he took all the food that he could possibly take that wouldn't ruin just by being outside. He took like an axe, a few tools, nails, and just took off towards like in the suburbs of just before you get to the city, where that way he can go to the city to go get the stuff he needs and then come back. Well, one thing he did shortly is he slowly stole some pallets, and he turned those pallets into actual a small home down in the woods that nobody can find. And he also made a little lair inside the city in case he needed a cool to off spot until he can get off into the woods again. Well, when he was about 6 years old when he finally got both of them finished, and then he started going to the library every chance he got in between in that time period, just learning everything he could learn, woodworking to cooking to everything, making stuff for, like, he started making a whole bunch of like um different things, and then he went and pawned it, saying he was pawning it for his mother, and was actually making enough money to actually get a bunch of non-perishables so he can eat. Like I said, this kid was beyond genius level. Well, by about 6 years old, he's gotten both of his. He had his basically his hidey hole and his small home deep in the woods done. So he started spending a lot. He would basically go into town. He'd go to the library once or twice a week until the cops were called on him one day, wondering why a kid was not in school, and voila. Um, so with everything going on, he just took off. Or no, he didn't just take off. What am I saying? He would. So he just stopped going, and what he started doing was hopping from one Wi-Fi area to another, and all he would do is watch um, YouTube videos and study like nonstop. When I say this kid was a genius, I don't underestimate. This kid was a genius. Like, by the time he was 8 years old, he actually built a solar panel on his own. They put on both his hidey hole and his small little house, and started selling these small little solar panels for extra cash here and there. He knew he could never get an actual house, but he could at least buy food whenever he could. Well, going back and forth all the time, training nonstop because shortly after he was 5 years old, or shortly after he got these two places done at about six and a half, which I probably said about a half a dozen, but he started training martial arts. He started learning different things. He's non-stop. He was busy from the time he woke up to the time he went to sleep. And this went on until he was 10 years old. Um, Constantly, non-stop training. So he could legitly fight at this point. I, Watching a 10-year-old kick your ass from YouTube videos, kind of impressive. Shortly after, or shortly before he turned 10 years old, a gang actually came after him because they wanted to start making money off the stuff he was making and make different things to add for drug cartels and shit. And are not cartels, but just wanted to make some money. and they wanted to steal his services, thinking he was a grown adult making these things and pawning them off. And he ended up having to beat the hell out of like a big old group of gang members by himself. Two of them almost died. So he was no slouch fighting whatsoever. But like I said, he kept busy nonstop. He pretty much gave a few things to the gang people or that gang, and it's like, hey, I'm just freaking 10. I'm trying to live my life, you know, and just left. And the gang members not wanting to admit that they got their ass beat by a 10-year-old. Um, yeah. So, with everything starting to calm down, one day he was walking down, he was on the corner when out of nowhere, this car came barreling through the corner and hit Soul. Using the knowledge he picked up from, he did a way to kick off to keep him from getting hurt as badly. And then when he um, got slammed into the wall, he just barely missed the plant to would have kept him somewhat safe. But his head ended up smacking hard up against the wall, and plus, you got hit by a car. Um, the boy just smack, and he was barely breathing. He was unconscious, of course, and there was blood everywhere. Blood was coming out of the back of his head, coming down off his nose. He had massive amount of bruising all the way. Luckily, this wandering, well, the people in the car stopped for a second, looked over, saw the boy wasn't moving, and then they just took off. Did a lot of damage to the car, but it was mainly fiberglass and caused a whole bunch of cuts and stuff around the boy's body. Well, this wandering monk just was walking down the street, and he looked over while everybody else was passing this kid. Looked over to see a literal bloody mess. He was like, just another dumb mortal losing his life too young. So he started to walk by, but then something started nagging at him at the back of his head. What the fuck? This has never happened before. He looked down and was like, fine. Then he took back, and then he realized none of the other mortals around him are screaming, doing anything. They're even walking through his blood and not even realizing it. What the fuck is going on here? He said, matter of factly, and I was like, huh. He got up and picked the boy up. And he was like, you know, fuck. And he pulled out this little bitty blue vial. And he poured it down his throat and then tossed the vial up against the wall. And next thing you know, this traveling monk just disappeared. when he appeared shortly in front of the hospital without being caught into, his staff was behind him, and he ran into the, like, he put his staff behind him, and he took his mask off and put it basically on his shoulder and ran into the hospital. And he told the hospital people, "Hey, I found this boy on the road bleeding everywhere. We need to." The hospital court grabbed him, took him back to the room, and did all sorts of tests. Um, the vial he gave the boy was a very lesser healing item that started healing way more than it should have. Once he got checked out, the hospital, thinking that that was his dad or somebody, let him spend the night in the room. Well, the monk basically just stayed there staring at the kid until he finally woke up about 5 days later. Nurses came in every once in a while, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't really know who this kid is, but I'm going to stay here until he wakes up so he's not alone." I mean, he does have raggedy clothes on, and I'm not sure what's been going on. So he finally woke up. Nurses and doctors ran in there, looking him head to toe over. Um, they basically, as soon as he woke up, a bunch of nurses came in, a bunch of doctors started talking to the kid, and realized that this kid has been homeless for forever. And they called social services and cops, and because of some stuff going on, the hospital said he can stay here until the end of the week, and then they're gonna come and do something with the boy, take him to an orphanage. Well, the boy heard that and was not happy about it whatsoever. Not even remotely happy about it. Well, still, with everything going on, he's just went back to sleep. He woke back up a few hours later, and that's when he finally noticed the monk just sitting there. He's like, "Who are you?" Well, said grumpily. Um, I was just a traveling monk and saw you on the side of the road, half dead, and then I took you and I just brought you over to the hospital. I tend to a few of your wounds before I got here. Why is your voice so deep? It sounds like you're straining it. And he looked back. Huh. You're one of the few people. I was just changing my voice to make me sound more, masculine, more manly, so you wouldn't be afraid as much. He's like, "Afraid? You're an old dude sitting in a seat next to." Well, I can see how some people would get afraid by that. He then started laughing. And he's like, "I'm not that old." He looked at him. Like, uh, to me, you are. I'm only 10. The mom just started laughing. Well, I guess I am old to a kid. standards. Well, anyway, kid, um, what's your name? My name's Soul, and that's about the only thing I can remember. And I was like, you're a very interesting kid. And he's like, well, how interesting can you be if you just woke up in a bloody, or just woke up in a hospital? You even said I was a bloody mess when I got here. Uh, well, how long have you been alone for? Are you some sort of. No, I'm literally just the dude that saved your life. A traveling monk, you say, said the immortal god, or the traveling god. Oh, I mean, monk. Anyway, um, so looks like you have done quite a bit on your own here without any help from anybody. Looks at him and it's like, I try. I mean, I do what I can for how I can. And like, yeah, I can actually understand that. And then they proceeded to talk back and forth for a few hours till he pulled this apple in this little pill looking thing out of his coat, and he sidetracked the kid for a second, and then he threw him the apple. He's like, go ahead and eat that. Um, then then he walked out of the room for a second and got a few drinks and a few pieces of candy, or like candy bars and stuff, and then brought it back and shared everything. Gave him the soda, and he drank it up, of course. It's like, you are quite intelligent for only like a 10-year-old. Eh, I mean, it is what it is. So, and then he did proceed to thank him for everything because he forgot to. He was like, and then proceeded to say, yeah, I've been kind of smart. And I think that's part of the reason why my mom just left me for nothing. Is because I was acting like I was isekai or some bullshit like that. Now, he's like, watch your language, kid. And he said it with actually kind of sorry. Sorry. Kids don't need to cuss. Okay. Sorry to offended you, sir. He shook his head. So, they said not until the end of the week you have. Yeah, I'll probably escape through that. It's like, escape? You don't need to escape. You have. You don't need to live on the streets. He was like, mind your business. He said, kinda in a gruff tone, is like, mind your business. Hey, I'm just saying, kid, living on the street is not a good cup of tea. Not a good thing for a 10-year-old to be. Well, it's all I remember. Shit, I don't even remember my last name. And then, as he was saying that, it's like, starting to get a little sleepy. And then he went to sleep. Sleep. The monk stayed there for a good while, and then he saw the something that made him nearly jump out of his seat. The pill he pretty much threw in the coke before he gave him. The pill was a healing pill, but when he ate the pill and the enchanted apple, which he forgot that it was one of his enchanted apples that he gave him instead of a regular apple. The enchanted apple actually started purifying him, and then when they put the recovery pill, combined that and this black inky stuff started coming out of every orifice he had, and when I mean it was stinky, I'm talking about god awful. Um, I mean, to the point where it was bad because more of it came out of this kid than he's ever seen happen to anybody ever. He's like, I need to go until I get too interested in this kid. And then he walks out the door. Just a minute later, kid jumps up, Soul looks around, it's like, and then sees this icky black stuff. He goes over, throws a gown, takes the gown he had off and pushed it, wiped off as much of the black stinky stuff off him, threw another gown that was on the table, and grabbed some wet wipes and looked around not to see the monkey. And then he pointed his head outside and saw the monk walking down the hall. Then he started secretly following him while wiping himself off with some wipes for a little bit. Then activated his invisibility skill by accident, need to say, and walked in. Then he saw the monk walk into the room, um, and then saw this big portal once he slid himself way into the room before the monk shut the door. And he saw the monk build this portal right in the middle of the room. It was almost like he was casting a spell. And he couldn't believe what it was. It was like, what is this? He started getting closer and closer to it. And then before he knew, he accidentally decloaked himself. The monk saw him, and then the boy jumped in. While falling, he was like, what a way to go. Then he started reaching out, just as like a joke, and he grabbed the cylinder thing out of. I mean, all right, to give context to what he's seeing, he's basically, um, think of like a big funnel, but each layer of the funnel has different eras in time, different dimensions, different planets. Um, he grabbed um, a cylinder thing out of one place and then grabbed a um, mask out of another. The cylinder looks like there was a bunch of people moving stuff around with their minds. And when he grabbed, it looked like a bunch of ninjas. But when he grabbed they were all bouncing back and forth, and he was basically he's bouncing like this. It gradually coming in contact with several different dimensions as he was falling, or different areas in time or space. Not really, don't really know at this point. Where the kid didn't really have a whole lot of to go, and then he fell on the ground. And when he fell on the ground, he was in a hospital gown, falling in the middle of the forest. Next thing you know, there was a tiger coming up towards him. He obviously got scared when the tiger jumped at him. And then next thing you know, and he was like, ah! Because he wasn't expecting a tiger. And the tiger got cut across the face with the with the light blade. And he looked down and was like, oh, this is cool. And he puts the mask over his face and flops it right quick and then charges at the tiger with this light blade saber thingy. And then once he got contact with the tiger, he literally cut the tiger in two. Wow, it accidentally slipped out of his hand and cut a tree down over it and accidentally hit another tiger right beside him. He's like, but as soon as it went through the tree, the blade shut off. It's like, whoa, that is cool. I wonder where I am. He looked around. He looked down and he realized he could see perfectly, even though there's only one hole in the side. And then all of a sudden, there was a screen that popped up on the side of his face where the mask was that pretty much had all of his information and how. And then it read Soul. It didn't have a last name because he forgot it himself. So then class, um, it said Druid slash Diviner. Like, what the fuck? And then the next thing it says age 10. And then started strength 102. Dexterity about 50. Agility about 300. So, damn. Um, luck 400. Um, what am I missing? Magic. And then he saw this ridiculous number as like cultivation. And then he saw like 100. And he's like, and then he looked back up. That must be a little bit of what the diviner is. But then he looked at his skills, and his skills like passive and impassive invincibility. And they looked under it and it says this skill allows the user on will and sometimes as a protective measure to go completely invisible. Then he looked down and it's like skill granted weapon mastery. He and then it started listing off a lot of the different things that he actually trained on as a kid. Different things he learned, like cooking skill, 10, um, building, 10, blacksmithing, 2, tech smithing, 15 out of 10. You got 5 bonus for, yeah. Um, then he started going further and further down the list. Um, and it was basically like martial arts, 10, weapon mastery, 10. It's like weapon mastery. Then he clicked on it. It was like a gift given from all the hardships that you have once had to deal with in a life that hard to become with a, a gift given by the gods to help you along your way for the hard life that you should have never had. He's like, what? And then after that part, he read that part. That part disappeared. Even he scratched his head anymore. Then he went and looked up, and it's like race. It's like, and then he like, what? I'm a human. What is this shit? Saying I'm a divine? The hell is that? Slash human. Or at least that's what he thought it said. And then it said air for a second, everything closed down. And then everything popped right back up. And then there's a screen that popped up and it's like, sorry, translation errors. Granted skill translations. Then he clicked on the skill popped up. Translation. For our error in the system booting inside you, we have granted you the ability to translate, talk, or any form of communication. With the skill, you get a bonus skill of mind defense, um, tech, or your mind defense allows you to defend your mind against people who try to prey on the vulnerabilities of you. 2, you get to be able to talk to other people's using this ability as well. Stonewall mind. Your defense grew is even harder through the hardships you have faced throughout your life. He's like, what? I mean, keep in mind, he's still a kid. He acts a lot more grown up, but he's still a kid at heart. No matter what you say about him, he is what he is. Well, he starts jumping up and down for a second and looks back over at us And then his name, soul, nameless. What? Race, diviner. What type? Slash elf. Hey, like slash human. What? And then he looks down at his class. Druid. Druid slash diviner slash question mark slash warrior. What? Age 10. And then it went back through his stats the same way. And then it gave him the stat of translation infinite. He looked down at the two and was like, I wonder if I can activate the skill to at least make me something out of. He activated the skill, and shortly after, he cut the hide off of each animal, took all the meat, and started cooking everything so he'd have something to eat. Took the crystal, smashed it, and then rubbed the crystal across both pelts before using some cutting down a tree and pretty much making string out of some rope out made from the and made him a gown based out of the pelts. He decided that he wanted a pair of pants too, which he had enough material to make him a small pair or a pair of shorts and a shirt that was furry. Well, this will work right now to at least cover myself. And then he kept the mask on because he could still see perfectly with the mask. He was kind of wondering how that happened. And then out of his bones, he made a like a out of most of the bones, he actually fused most of them together using this what he thought was magic, which he couldn't really debate one way or another. Um, and then the rest of the core he threw on the clothes and just forged everything together. The all the bones ended up turning into what was called a bone sword. It basically looked like a katana, one side super sharp, and then the other side blunt. And then there was a small little crystal at the bottom of the shaft, and then what looked like a furry type handle with like a big flat round, or and then the rest of the blade in the guard was made pure white, but it looked like there was teeth coming out of the guard, and there was a few teeth coming out of the back of the blade where he could almost like there was a spot like that big where he looked like he could saw something from the sharp teeth. Um, and the rest of the teeth he accidentally forged along the rim of his shirt, and it basically looked like there was like a teeth buildup right here and right here that was flat. He's like, that looks kind of dumb, but I don't really have a choice. But this is so freaking cool. He put everything on, swung the sword a little bit, and went off to actually start making him a house. He found a way to put the little rod thing on his gown, and he decided that he was going to build a tree type house because that way he can hide because he's in pure new surroundings and he needs to learn the world. All right, now I'm heading back over to the monk side of things. The monk was shocked as all get out when he looked down and he saw this kid appear out of nowhere and then jump in the hole. He tried to catch him, but he didn't have time because he was in shock of what was happening. He he proceeded to jump after him, but while he was looking at the kid, he saw him do something that should have been impossible. He just grabbed something out of another dimension? No, another universe. And then he saw him grab two more things and a mask and this little cloak looking thing. And then he saw him hit the ground. He came in a little bit after, about a mile or something away. He came back up and saw the wolf about to attack him. And then he proceeded to see what happened. How in the world did this kid get a lightsaber? What? And then him seeing everything he did with the bones and everything. And he decided, hey, I'm actually going to follow this kid. There is something about him. I don't know what, but something I need to check out very greatly. Huh. I'll keep my head back for now and see what he does. All right. This is the end of the first chapter of The Nameless Soul. So, thank you everybody for watching until you get to this point. Um, I have other stories. Um, if you want to check any of them out, um, just head to my playlist and like the crazy werewolf, the lunar, the old lady that crossed the road, and all those are different stories that I'm doing here on YouTube. I'll be updating them sporadically. At some point, I'm going to have a. I'm probably gonna try to put up two every week in a schedule, but at the moment, I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. So, um, I also stream on Twitch. If you want your own custom story, you can actually, with channel points on there, um, ask for a story time, and I will get generally what you want, and you can see my improvisation in work. But make sure if you like my content, subscribe. I don't care if you like or not. If you do, that's cool. If you don't, and I hope you check out my other stuff. Um, any, like I said, my whole thing about doing this is I do it completely off of my head to mouth to you. As you probably seen me having a few mistakes here and there with thinking wise, and yeah. Well, anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Um, keep being awesome, and stay in tune for the next one. Peace.